Skip Newberry, President and CEO of Technology Association of Oregon. A couple of rules of engagement before we get started. All participants have been muted, so please remain on mute unless a TAO staff member unmutes you and calls on you to talk. You may ask or respond to questions in the chat box, either publicly or privately by directing your message to TAO admin or to Ruthie Ditzler. We'll monitor the chat box and respond throughout the discussion. We'll ask you all to engage via the participant icon on your screen, and please engage with us on social media during this call and throughout the day. We appreciate all the support, and you can see where to find us on the slide. Due to the limited time, we'll capture all questions in the chat and shift any unanswered ones to Mobilize, which is our online member engagement platform. Mobilize is TAO's virtual community, and it's member only. We'll post any unanswered questions there from our members and keep the conversation going afterward. And if you have any questions about joining Mobilize or TAO, please feel free to reach out to membership@techoregon.org. TAO staff support is provided by Kara Turano and Ruthie Ditzler, who are happy to take feedback, questions, comments, or discuss sponsorship opportunities. It's now my pleasure to introduce Michael Markesbery. Thanks for joining us today, Michael.
Thanks, Skip. Honored to be here.
Awesome. So I thought it'd be good to kind of start off with some background, and was wondering, how did OROS get started? And if in that process you can share a little bit about your personal background and story, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Ohio. I'm a Midwest guy, and my sophomore year of college, I went backpacking across Europe, and I ended up climbing the tallest mountain in the Northeast Swiss Alps, and was a phenomenal experience. Except when I was on top of the mountain, I looked like the Michelin Man with all my Vulcan layers, and it made me think, like, I'm a science geek. And what surprised me most about that situation was, at the time, we just learned about the CRISPR-Cas9 gene system, and like genome editing, space tourism seemed like it was about to be a reality. Like, all these things were happening, and here I was on top of this mountain in a big bulky jacket, and freezing my butt off. And the jacket was insulated with animal byproducts, goose down, like the same thing we've been using for hundreds to potentially thousands of years. And it didn't make sense to me that with all this innovation in the world, that we still seemingly haven't found a better way to cut the bulk, cut the layers, still stay warm. And so it kind of bothered me. And so I came back to the US with like this itch to scratch. Like, was there really no better way to stay warm? And did the research and found out that there's been incremental improvements over the last 70 years. But for the most part, it was pretty antiquated. Like, Eddie Bauer patented the first baffled goose down jacket in 1936, like over 70 years ago. And for the most part, all we've done is just update that style to reflect like these trends. So this blew my mind. I knew there had to be a better way. I was very fortunate, and a little later in college, ended up getting a scholarship created by the Mercury 7 astronauts called the Astronaut Scholarship. And through the Astronaut Scholarship, I learned about this NASA technology called aerogel, which NASA was using to insulate things in the negative 455 degree temperatures of space. And so I'm hearing this, and light bulb goes off in my head. I think, oh my gosh, if you can use this insulation to keep things warm in space, imagine what you can do with it here on Earth. You could completely transform this outerwear category. You could solve this problem that I had when I was on top of this mountain, looking like the Michelin Man. And so that was the genesis of OROS when we were in college, and here we are. 7 years later, venture backed, incredible team, incredible board, and really excited for what's next.
That's an awesome story. So tell me more about this relationship that you struck up with the federal government. So from the very beginning, you've been able to take advantage of technology developed by NASA, and then you've been doing more work as the company's grown. So, walk us through a little bit of that, and also feel free to share any advice you have for other startups that might be interested in getting going with the federal government as a partner.
Yeah. On the NASA side, the original aerogel, long since the IP long since expired, so it's pretty open source. So at the time, two college kids were able to get their hands on it pretty easily. Since then, we formed some more formal relationships on some newer technology. But on the Department of Defense side of things, we for the first year attempted to get our foot in the door in the defense community, and we didn't have the relationship or networks to really know how to do it effectively. And so out of that first year, like the big learning was surrounding ourselves with advisors and bringing in the right team that knows that industry well is really going to serve us in the long term. So what we ended up doing is we brought on a phenomenal advisor, Colonel John Berger. He's the previous chief of the Joint Cyber Center for the U.S. Army. And also in our last financing, we brought in the venture arm of the CIA, In-Q-Tel, to invest in OROS, and since added Brenda Jaheda, senior partner, to our board. And so surrounding ourselves with the right team to work in that market has been one of the big learnings for us as a fast growth young company to work it with the federal government.
So a lot of startups have often kind of complained about just the complexity in working with the federal government. And so you found that just surrounding yourself with advisors who had kind of been there, done that, worked on the inside, really helped kind of navigate some of the somewhat Byzantine layers of red tape and process.
Yeah, and you need to figure out, what it is you want, right? So our focus in the near term was purely R&D based, right? Like procurement, sure, down the road. But what we wanted was R&D to really offset, to allow us to hire incredible talent in Oregon, especially on our technology and science fronts, something that, consumer brands don't do in a big capacity. I think our chief technology officer said he used to run innovation and materials at the North Face. And he said, hey, Michael, told me this last year, he says, hey, Michael, I want you to know we have as many we have as big of an R&D headcount as North Face had when they were a $2 billion company. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. So being able to hire that talent and then also have a source of non-dilutive funding that we can use towards our R&D, whether it's headcount or CapEx, which then allows us to use any venture dollars to actually scale the company in the business, rather than have it solely funnel into this big capital use of R&D. And so that's been the goal in the near term of working with the federal government, and having that goal established allowed us to have a lens to view, what's the right opportunity, what's not the right opportunity. So I think one, knowing what your goal is in that relationship, and then also having the right people around the table were the two ingredients that allowed us to have success on the federal government front.
And in terms of the origin of the company, you guys got started in Ohio and then decided at some point to relocate to Oregon. What were some of the reasons why?
Oh, super simple. Access to talent and access to the outdoors. We did a full sweep and looked at, I think, like over 15 different cities all across the US. And Portland won out by a pretty good margin. And so knew that Portland was the right place to put up, especially on the talent front.
Yep.
So that
was it.
That's why Oregon.
Awesome. Yeah, it's hard to argue with a place that has some of the largest athletic and outdoor companies in the world here.
Totally.
And a beautiful environment. It's like a living lab.
Yeah, I've been spending my summers getting into kiteboarding, which is something I couldn't do in Ohio. So that's been a super fun experience.
Awesome. Let's shift a little bit to the topic of talent. How have things been going in terms of finding the right talent, growing the team here? Walk us through.
The wealth of talent is large. especially in this industry of technical apparel and in technology. There is a wealth of talent here. And so having pools of candidates has been a welcome opportunity for OROS. If there's any challenge that we've had on the hiring front, it's been, especially on the technical apparel side, the talent tends to be coming from very large industry established companies in the space. And going from a very large company with CAGRs of, low double digits, maybe high single digits, to a fast growth small company requires quite a bit of a different skill set and mental shift. And so the process for OROS has been narrowing down candidates based on who we believe is going to be most successful in that different position.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So in other words, like with a startup or a growth stage company, really, it's about not necessarily being hyper specialized, because some roles are going to have to wear several different hats over time. Whereas the larger the company, the more specialization.
Exactly.
Yep. So where have you had any challenges? And if you haven't had any, that's fine to say too. But what's been difficult from the talent side, either in terms of culture because of COVID and having to flip remote, or just in terms of the hiring process?
For the most part, I would say it's been pretty smooth. Even during COVID, we did end up building out an office, and it's an incredible office, and we opened it in March, a couple of weeks before COVID hit. So that was a pretty interesting experience. But the office is great, and I'm sure once COVID's a little bit more under control, the office will be open. From a talent perspective, there's an entrepreneurial spirit here, which is strong. And as I mentioned, the talent pool is phenomenal, incredible expertise. And so the wealth of talent's been great. Again, the only challenge has been narrowing down to the pool to those that can succeed in the environment that OROS is creating, both from a shift from big company to fast growth small company and on a cultural perspective as well. But with the large quantity of talent, that shift has not been a challenge.
All right. And in terms of the the diversity of talent, whether it's from their experiences, whether it's ethnic, gender, et cetera, one thing I've noticed just anecdotally about the athletic and outdoor industry here is that it tends to be a bit more diverse than, say, the tech industry purely defined. And so have you found that there's been a relative diversity of folks you've been able to draw upon as you're growing the team?
For the most part, I would say on occasion, I'd say 25% of the time we're having to source from outside Portland.
Yep.
Whether it's pulling from Utah, a lot of times we do that from a tech side, or San Francisco. I'd say 25% of the time we aren't finding the talent we want in Portland, or found talent that more fits our needs elsewhere. But by large, I'd say 75% of the time that we hire someone, they're local to Portland.
Yep.
So we do broaden our search when need be.
Yep, makes sense. So as you think about the fundraising side of scaling a startup as opposed to just growing the team, what are your thoughts on raising capital, both in Oregon and sort of where else you've been looking as you're going through that process?
Raising, I believe OROS has raised a little over $12 million of venture capital to date. And raising capital for OROS became easier when we moved to Portland. And the big driver of that is being able to show the expert talent that we've been able to bring on the team, and show that Portland is a phenomenal place to scale this company from a talent side. And so I think investors respond very well to that. The second half of your question was raising capital in Oregon. And, I would say that there is some phenomenal, there are really great VC firms in Oregon, but I would say it's, there's not a wealth of venture capital available in Oregon itself. So we're incredibly fortunate to have Portland Scene Fund as an investor in OROS. And there's some other phenomenal firms here, whether Rogue Venture Partners, Oregon Venture Fund, Nitin Rai's firm is Elevate. Yep. So some phenomenal firms here, but there's not many multi-billion-dollar asset under management firms that have the ability to latch onto a company and with access to capital help it really reach Series B, Series C stage. And so I would say that's probably a weakness for Oregon, but for OROS, using the talent pool as a justification for why OROS belongs in Portland has been a really great tool as we go and re-raise capital.
That's really great. I mean, just in tech over the last 10 years, we've heard a lot of conversations about, we only need a fund of like between 75 and 150 million. That's one gap. And then as you pointed out, there's another one, which is sort of the larger stage, and having more of that capital be resident here just helps. I mean, when a company exits and there's a liquidity event, the LPs, if they're located elsewhere, get wealthy. It'd be nice if you had some of them here.
Totally. Absolutely. Yep. And I think there's definitely been a democratization of funding in the US over the last decade, right? Like, it used to be, you only got funded if you were in Silicon Valley or maybe New York, and I think that's been changing. Like I look at my home state of Ohio and I see Drive Capital, multi-billion-dollar asset under management fund, created 2 unicorns in the past 2 years. I think also Narya just opened up, which is they just opened up their first fund like 3 months ago. They're like 250 million asset under management. Largest LPs, Peter Thiel, one of the most legendary investors of all time. And so there's definitely this democratization that's happening. So my point is, I think it can happen here.
Yep.
Especially because it seems like we have the talent and there's a entrepreneurial spirit. So you have all the ingredients. It's just making it happen.
Nice. So we talked a little bit about this, but like that intersection that you guys sit at the center of between tech and apparel, what are some of the things you're seeing as you've gotten to know the ecosystem here a bit more, both sides of it, both the tech side, the apparel side? Like, what do you see as a potential opportunity in the future for tech and apparel? Challenges, opportunities?
I really think, especially on the apparel side, and this is honestly a strength for OROS. I kind of like this because it makes hiring talent easier. You have really large companies in the consumer space, and then you have people doing fun projects out of their garage. You don't really have there's not really a strong, fast-growing middle market in the consumer goods space here in Oregon. There's a couple companies, but it doesn't seem to be a major strength for Oregon. And I think that has positioned OROS well in terms of being able to hire talent in claiming that position. But that is definitely an opportunity, I think, on the consumer side, is to build that up. And I've been thinking a lot about why that is, why there isn't a strong middle market here on the consumer side. And I think a lot of it comes back to that access to capital, because you have all the other ingredients, right? Like we have really incredible talent, and from my experience, really strong entrepreneurial spirits. Like if you got those two things, well, what are you missing? And I think it's a wealth of capital that's ready to be infused into the consumer space. I think is probably the missing ingredient.
It's a great observation. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the sort of details around the consumer marketplace. One question from one of the attendees is, what's valued most in the marketplace for outdoor gear? Price, style, or performance?
I think it depends on who the consumer base is. OROS's consumer base is the modern urbanite. It's a mid-20s to early 30-year-old, lives in an urban environment, spends the weekend outside doing a variety of different activities. And for them, style is definitely a big win, as is performance, price less so. So I think it just depends on who the consumer base is. But to your point, there's got to be some point of differentiation for every company in the consumer space to win. And price is definitely a big place to win for a lot of brands.
Yep.
As is performance and style. So I think candidly, it just depends on who the consumer base is and what it is they're looking for in the product.
Mm-hmm. So here's another one from this is Niall at JLL. He's excited to have you in PDX. He's like, his question is on wearability of the product. Has it been a challenge integrating the solar core tech into a garment that's comfortable to wear?
Awesome question. So, if the question we first wondered is, if aerogel's this phenomenal insulation and it's been around for a long time, like how come it's not just being used ubiquitously, right? Like, and the problem was aerogel was super brittle. If you poked it, it just shattered into 1,000 little pieces. So like really bad news bears for any insulated consumer product.
Right.
So our passion project became just figuring out how to make it not brittle so that you could use it in consumer goods like apparel. And we ended up creating the first ever flexible, durable aerogel composite. And the way we did that was we combined it with a aerogel we looked at the industry and said, oh my gosh, whether it was footbeds or soft coolers or sleeping pads, they were all using closed cell foam for insulation. So we said, oh my gosh, like, why don't you just combine aerogel particles with closed cell foam, get the flexibility and durability of the closed cell foam, get the insulation of the aerogel. And that created SolarCore 1.0, what's in all of our gear today. 1.0 is cuttable, sewable, bondable, machine washable, dryable. And so from an integration and comfort standpoint, it's been pretty easy. With that said, though, I would say, the vision of the company from a product perspective, like what Rith and I wanted to do from day one, wasn't just to make thinner or warmer outerwear like we make today. Like that's the value proposition. We give the consumer thinner and warmer outerwear on a performance basis. We wanted to completely change the consumer's interaction with insulated apparel. We wanted to create a technology that would allow our consumer to wear a long sleeve shirt that could keep them warm sub-freezing. And to do that, you've got to completely rethink insulation. It can't be something that you stuff inside of a jacket. It's got to be, the garment itself, the fiber of the garment's got to be the insulation. And that's what we've been working on. That's something that's coming out in the near future. And also the genesis of a lot of our relationships with the defense community is on that next generation technology. And so I think yeah. So back to the question, I think it gets more wearable as we continue to progress this technological field.
Excellent. So as we wrap up, I love this next question. So what's your pitch to tech talent? How do you distinguish working for OROS versus any other tech company in the area?
I think there's two things. The first is back to OROS being a middle market company. I think, and this is not something we have to say so much as I think is understood. You had the ability, coming from a large company where you're super specialized, you have the ability to wear multiple hats and own more of the development process. And I think that's really enticing to a lot of talent to be able to come in and, be a manager or a big player of a smaller, fast growing company. And then the other thing is, like if you were interested in incremental change, if you were interested in you know, making something 10% better or a CAGR of 10%, like OROS isn't the right fit for you. Like that wouldn't work. And so we're very transparent in terms of what our goals are and what the vision is of the company. And it's not incremental, it's completely transformative. And I think that attracts a certain type of person and attracts a certain type of talent. And I think it excites a lot of people and also turns some people off. And so I think those two outliers are what attracts people to OROS. And then within that, it's got to be a cultural fit and all these other things as well.
Yeah.
But those are the two things that are kind of qualifiers, I'd say.
Well said. Well, Michael, I know you're incredibly busy. I want to thank you for taking some time today to spend with us and share some insights that you've kind of picked up along the way. And I think Niall said it well. We're really happy to see you here in PDX and look forward to helping you out along the way and celebrating your successes. So thanks again for spending time with us. And also wanted to say thank you to all of the folks who were able to attend. And then of course, thank you as well to Ruthie and Kara on the TAO team for helping to make this run so smoothly. So we hope to see you all again soon. We've got 2 more events coming up for the Resiliency Series, both on the 13th with Wendy Singer, talking about Israel's success around getting vaccinations out to a massive portion of the population and how they did that both technologically, culturally, and systemically. And then we've also got a session with the Oregon Secretary of State, Shamia Fagan, coming up as well. And both of those are coming up later this month. So I think on the 13th and the 20th, respectively. So keep an eye out for those, and we'll see you all again soon. Have a great day.